Hello, my name is Jalee Evans, and this is my presentation on sexual education in America. Before discussing the two main conflicting sides surrounding sex ed, we will first examine the history of its practice as outlined in the History of Sex Education, authored by Brian Harris. Prior to the 20th century, sex education was not really a construct. Parents sometimes taught their children and some did not, but it was up to the individual family. In the 1910s, with the introduction of World War I, however, the United States declared it necessary to educate soldiers on sexually transmitted infections and diseases, mostly syphilis and gonorrhea. Cases of these infections began spiking as U.S. soldiers were being shipped overseas to fight. This national effort sparked more and more parents, students, and schools to push for sex education. Between the 1920s and 1940s, the government did just that. The Education Bureau began drafting guidelines for curriculum for school districts at the high school level, and colleges saw the introduction of human sexuality and gender courses. In the 1960s and 70s, there was brought about enormous liberation efforts regarding both civil rights and gender and sexuality rights. The U.S. saw people embracing their identity and orientation, and these advocates continued to push for more comprehensive sex education in schools. This also included efforts to incorporate gay sex relations and further education on non-cisgender or heterosexual lifestyles. This sex liberation movement also brought about political agendas that aligned with sex and relationship morals. The 1980s saw an infamous spike in AIDS and autoimmune disease. It was primarily spread among gay males, and this drove the country into a political frenzy which further divided people into factions. Those who supported sex education typically supported the lifestyle of gay people, and those who yearned for sex education to be pulled from education typically did not support those suffering with AIDS nor differing sexual orientations. In 1996, Congress took action for the first time since the AIDS epidemic began, in the form of legislation. Within a Welfare Act, Congress declared that federal funds would only be provided to sexual education programs that promoted abstinence only. Then, from the years 2000 to 2010, a series of journals and research studies surfaced that all shared the same conclusion. Abstinence-only programs provided misleading and medically inaccurate information to children. Because of this failed education, our country faced higher STD rates, pregnancy rates, and sexual abuse rates. With that brief history, we will now take a look at what abstinence-only education has looked like in America. As per a Students' University honors thesis titled Abstinence-Only Sex Education in the United States. According to the paper by student Mariah Lynch, the main goal of this curriculum is stressing that abstaining from sexual intercourse while out of marriage is the only morally correct choice. This theory is supported by saying sexual pleasure should only be found, given, and received within marriage, and any activity outside of wedlock is immoral and negative. Ultimately, this mode of education has censored plenty of necessary education, including contraception methods, anatomy and physiology of humans, and the relationship aspect that comes with sex. Critics of this method deem it unrealistic, as young people, with the introduction of new hormones, feelings, and stimulations, are naturally curious. Looking further into abstinence-only education, we can first see the results of this mode in numbers. These numbers were gathered by Planned Parenthood from a survey in 2011 known as the Arizona Youth Risk Behavior Survey. With the increase of federal funding beginning in 1996, we see a surprising drop in the number of U.S. schools requiring human sexuality courses. In 2002, this number of required schools stood at 67%, which dropped down to 48% in 2014. Subsequently, the number of students receiving birth control education also dropped. In young males aged 12 to 18, this number dropped from 81% to 55% between the years of 1995 to 2011. With the passing of the aforementioned Congress abstinence-only funding bill, there has been $2 billion spent on this curriculum since 1982, and under this, at the federal level, the U.S. is still barred from educating on contraceptive use. The efficacy of abstinence programs does not match up with some claims. The concept of abstinence is to not engage in sexual activity before marriage, yet, with this curriculum implemented, the United States sees a gap in numbers of first intercourse and first marriage. For women, this means the average time was 8.7 years between their first intercourse and their first marriage, and that number jumps to 11.7 years in men. Ultimately, research has shown numerous times that abstinence-only education not only isn't effective, but proves to have negative effects on our children. I also included this picture from the motion picture Mean Girls, which comically details how inaccurate abstinence-based sex education is. Moving forward, next we will discuss what a comprehensive sex education looks like, as outlined in the same Planned Parenthood article titled, Why Support Comprehensive Sexuality Education? The goal of comprehensive sex education is to inform students about all aspects of sex. This includes contraception use, such as pills, IUDs, condoms, abstinence, as well as signs and symptoms of STDs, and the causes and effects of unintended pregnancies. Beyond these, this form of sex ed also discusses interpersonal skills, values, and relationships that coincide with sexual encounters. The main goal is to promote an understanding of all aspects of sex, encompassing physical, mental, and social health. Comprehensive sex education has been argued to promote premarital sex instead of the idea that sex out of wedlock is immoral and bad. On the contrary, this mode offers a wider view of sex, both at a physical and educational view. Again, a comprehensive sex education is all-encompassing. This means it teaches across a wide array of criteria, including incorporating anatomy and physiology courses, puberty and adolescent development, identity courses, pregnancy and reproduction, STDs and HIV, and addresses personal safety in these types of relationships. In regards to numbers, these were pulled from the same survey in Arizona, both in schools and as parents, and they emphasize the needs and gains a comprehensive sex education would have. When students were surveyed, 52% had responded that they had had intercourse in the past 3 months, and 15% of those report not using any form of contraception. Of those who had had sex in their lifetime, 10% of students reportedly were forced into sexual activity by their partners. Specific to seniors in high school, 24% declared they had had 4 or more sexual partners in their lifetime. Beyond this, 11% of general high schoolers say they were physically hurt by their partner within the relationship. Under an abstinence-based education, these are the results. With a comprehensive education, students would learn to keep themselves and their partners safe and secure, both mentally and physically. Next, parents and teachers were surveyed in Arizona, and 76% agreed that a comprehensive sexual education would reduce teen pregnancy as a result of providing medically accurate education. 65% of responders agreed that teen pregnancies are not reduced by the methods of abstinence education, and 80% said that teachers qualified to teach sexual education should be involved in a child's education both in the school and at home. These numbers show that the abstinence-only education system in place is not helping our children in areas that a comprehensive curriculum would. Of the main concerns for proponents of stronger sex ed courses revolves around sex abuse. Most sexual abuse either begins or occurs at an early age. Some startling statistics from RAIN, the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, show that 1 in 9 girls and 1 in 53 boys below age 18 are sexually abused at least once in their life, and high school-aged females are 4 times as likely to be raped, attempted raped, or sexually assaulted than any other demographic. These numbers are scary, and giving young children the knowledge and vocabulary to address these issues with a trusted adult is significant to reducing the numbers seen. Children and young adults deserve the tools and power to understand their own bodies. Referring back to the educational differences, this chart demonstrates the distinctions between abstinence and comprehensive education methods, as is outlined by Jean Brown in the article, The Difference Between Abstinence-Only and Comprehensive Sex Ed. The key differences lie in morality, sexual-related topics, and efficacy. Within morality, abstinence is deemed the only acceptable behavior in Column 1, whereas comprehensive sex ed is more open to premarital sex practices. Abstinence-only education focuses on the negative effects of premarital sex, while comprehensive sex ed discusses a wide range of sex-related topics, including human development and relationships. Finally, there is a very important difference in the efficacy of these methods. Abstinence-based ed proves to not be very effective in lowering HIV rates nor unplanned pregnancy in comparison to comprehensive-based ed. I would like to end my presentation with this quote from Fatima Muhammad in her book Higher Heels, Bigger Dreams, which reads, "Sex education is essential to create healthy self-knowledge and reconciliation, healthy conversation and understanding, healthy mindsets and lifestyles." In essence, a comprehensive sex education that begins at a young age is more likely to foster a prosperous life and more significant and safe relationships. Thank you for your time.